throughout the entire event. So again, thank you for watching on FLW Live, and I'm going to turn it on over to Mr. Jonathan Newton. Thank you very much.
I got asked the question a while ago, what is my strengths of fishing? And just to give you a little background, sometimes I think that when you've been out here a little while and you've been from Detroit to Texas to everywhere we go, Okeechobee, you kind of get a sense of a little bit of all of it. I mean, I came from the Tennessee River, so I'm used to the current, I'm used to river fishing, but we also have offshore structure fishing like Kentucky Lake and all that. But sometimes what is a hard balance for us as pro anglers to do is pick one or the other. You know, David Fritz obviously picked cranking, and that's what he does year-round. So for me, I've had success doing both. I've won at Kentucky Lake throwing a crankbait. I've won at Pickwick flipping a jig. That's really what I like to do is fish shallow water. So the Red River actually, where we are here, plays into what my strengths are. But if I had to pick one or the other, it would be shallow fishing. And that's just something I'm comfortable with. I think that I'll have a sense of understanding how shallow fish react versus deeper fish. You know, Mark Rose obviously has the deep fish figured out. That's all he does. But what I didn't. If y'all have anything you really want to ask me or stop me anytime, but one of the things I was going to talk about today was weight selection. Just on your, if you're flipping a brush hog, if you're flipping a speed crawl, or whatever you want to flip, a lot of people tie on a 4 ounce weight on 18 or 15 or 20 pound tests, they go fishing. And you don't think about, in shallow water, like deep water, we know deep water fish is speed. I mean, we know there's days are going to be 2 foot off the bottom, there's days are going to be halfway up in the column, and you have to figure those fish out and catch them. Well, shallow fishing is the same way. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of weight, line selection, and all that. And that's one thing that I've kind of figured out. There's days you really figure it out, and there's days you're like, oh, well, I don't really know nothing about this. But you know, people tie on a 1/4 ounce weight for the biggest part, and they go fish all day long, and then they're like, well, they didn't bite today. And, you know, I didn't catch anything. Well, you know, they probably bit. And I had a friend of mine tell me a long time ago, he said, if you're doing the right thing, you're going to know it. You may be not catching anything, but you'll switch baits. We've all done it. Switch baits, and you start catching fish. Well, I think it's really important on your weight selection. There's days those shallow fish are not on the bottom. There's days that, I know all of you, if you fish shallow, there's days that you pitch the bait up a piece of wood, you see the fish hit it. Well, there's a reason for that. That fish is higher in the column that day. And that's little key things that, and you can't answer that you can't go out there every day and say, well, it's a bluebird day, they're going to be tight to cover, they're going to be on the bottom. Well, that's not necessarily true. You have to figure that out as the day goes on. But you know, adjusting your weight size, I like to go, if I'm flipping soft plastics, I like to start out, 3/16 is about as small as I go. Sometimes I'll throw an 1/8 ounce, but 3/16 1/4, and I usually skip 3/8 and go straight to half. I figure there's not enough difference there that matters. But just an example of earlier this year, I was fishing a tournament at Wheeler, in both Wheeler and Pickwick, where the fish were, you cannot catch them on a 1/4 ounce weight. And they were in water this deep. They would not bite. I mean, it's just one of them things you're like, why? You know, you can pitch a 1/4 ounce weight in there, nothing. Pick up your 1/2 ounce, and you would catch one out of every bush. Pick up the 1/4 ounce, we'd catch another one. And why was that? I'm not really sure the answer to that. I mean, I just know that those fish, I guess, wanted that bait closer to the bottom at all times, and that 1/4 just didn't, maybe it wasn't stirring up enough stuff on the bottom, or for whatever reason it was, they bit a 1/2 ounce weight that day, and that was it. They would not bite nothing else. And I think we all get in kind of in a groove that, you know, we just tie a bait on, we're like, well, we can use it and not really change it up, and sometimes it's just a matter of changing your weights up. But those fish that I catch on 3/16 ounce weight, a lot of times those fish will be suspended up on the like if you're fishing logs or timber or whatever is around the lakes you fish. You pitch in there, and and you'll catch them on the fall. So that 3/16 on those days if they're suspended really works much better than a pack. You're not going to catch them because they're passing too quick. They're not going to follow it. They're just not going to catch them. So I think that the weight selection is a really big deal to keep up with. Y'all ask questions.
What about a wacky worm in saltwater?
Hello.
That works really good when they're suspended. I mean, and I'll give you an example of that because I got a story about that kind of blew my mind. But I had a guy from Arkansas fish with me one-on-one Kentucky Lake. I was fishing crankbaits off 14, 15 foot of water. This guy caught 15 pounds behind me throwing a weightless wacky worm on the ledges. Now, that told me something. I mean, I was catching the fish that were on the bottom, but he was catching those fish that were suspended that day. And I mean, he just had the confidence to stick with that. But there's days when that wacky worm will work and nothing else will work. And that's the days they're a little bit, if I was using a 3/16 ounce weight, it's the days I should be using a weightless, or a wacky worm. But especially in March, April, mostly May, that's a really big deal when they're up on the bed or garden fry or they're cruising around shallow water. That wacky worm is really hard to beat. It's really hard to beat. Now I take the wacky worm, they make hooks for that, or you can just regular hook. I mean, that's what I've always done. Took a regular hook and put it on there. So, but it works. There's several different kinds you can use. One of the things I like to do with that is take the everybody knows about the Cinco, but the ultraviolet speed worm that Zoom makes. It's got the flapping tail. Just pinch the tail off, and you've got the same thing. So it works real well too. But, what else? I know y'all got.
You go in practice and bring up like 4 rods, 4 weights.
I do. And line size. That not so much in shallow water. You can get by with 15 to 20 to 25 in shallow water pretty much all the time. But one of the things I do with a jig is on bluffs back on the Tennessee River. So there's days that adjusting that line with the current makes a big deal. 15 pounds one day is the thing you need to use on a 3/4 ounce jig. And the other day, you may get by with a 20-pound test and a half ounce jig. I mean, it's just, that all varies with the current. But yeah, that's a big deal too. Just having, if you have 3 or 4 rods lined out, what you like to fish. And I tell everybody to fish what you like to fish. I mean, you're going to be a better fisherman using the things you like to use versus something you don't have confidence in. But if you have 3 or 4 rods lined up with different size jigs, weights, whatever you want to use, then once you dial that in, then you can put the rest of them up usually, unless something happens during the day. And there's a change of weather, barometric pressure, whatever. You can obviously go back to where you started, but most of the time, once you figure it out, you can dial it in and use it all day. So.
What about the braid versus the mono versus the fluorocarbon? Keep the good from braid.
I don't. I use either. I still use a lot of mono. I mean, there's cases that I think fluorocarbon has more sensitivity, which when you get more sensitivity, you have less stretch, and you have more likelihood to break off. I mean, that's just it on hook set. I use a lot of mono still. Braid, the only thing I use braid for, a spinning rod, I tie a leader, and then I use it on a frog, any surface bait, or if I'm punching like heavy cover. I'm using 1.5 ounces, and then if you, like in the reeds, take for example at Okeechobee, a lot of times the sound of that braid in those reeds will scare those fish. So you have to go to like a 25-pound mono to not have that. This is when you go in, they're real skittish. But for me, fluorocarbon I use on, obviously fluorocarbon don't work good on top water, unless it's like something like a fluke. Can't do a spook or whatever, not that good, it don't work that good. But I use it for more like a wacky worm like you're talking about, or just a regular Cinco, or just anything like that I want to actually go down a little bit under the surface. And I use it for deep cranking some too, because you can take 8-pound fluorocarbon and get it another foot or 2 deeper than mono. So it works good for that. I use totally tungsten now. And I'll tell you why. If you ever look at the weights, the tungsten, all of them are much shorter. And obviously when that fish inhales that bait into its mouth, and you set the hook, the longer that weight is, the more that mouth's going to open, and the less chance you're going to catch that fish. So the shorter the weight, the more chance you have on catching the fish. And it's not going to just open their mouth up and you're going to pull the hook out without getting it in their mouth. So I use all tungsten now, and plus they're more sensitive too. So tungsten is maybe a little more expensive, but I go get a lot more than to break them off. I don't break them off here as much, but yeah, everything I use now is tungsten. So I have been a lake for it. I sure have. I fished a couple of tournaments out there before. It's a nice lake to fish. A lot of timber, but it's a lot of fun to fish. I fished there one time when they were spawning, and I think the other time was in the summertime. So it was still a lot of fun, though. I like to go back fishing on tournament too. If you live Lake Fork, yeah, it's a good place to fish. We just catch them on swim baits. That's what we catch them on then. So
You ever fish in Alabama rig?
I have a funny story about the Alabama rig. Andy Poss that made that famous. I mean, he's the one that kind of came up with that, made it. I worked with him years ago in the piping industry. And to answer your question, I have fished that, and it is highly effective. I mean, it will catch fish when the water's below 60 degrees that no other bait will catch. I mean, I'm convinced of that. Is it one of my favorite baits to fish? Absolutely not, because I can't throw it that much. I mean, your shoulders and your wrist and everything has to be in the best shape possible to be able to fish that all day. Throwing it on braid. You know, a lot of people are throwing it on mono and fluoro now, but when he came out with it, he told me you got to throw an 85-pound test braid. And rightly so. I mean, you don't want to lose $30 every time you get hung up. So that's why he threw it on 85. But it's hard to throw, but yes, it will catch a lot of fish. I mean, I've used it at home. I've used it wherever we've been, and it's really, it's amazing to me how it tricks those fish so good. Because if they're suspended in the water column, they will bite that. When they won't bite a jerk bait, they will bite a crankbait. You know, they'll bite that. It's just, it's pretty amazing because when he gave me that, he gave me one like in June, I guess, before Paul Wise one at Gunnersville. And I looked at the thing and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. Because I mean, it goes against everything that you believe about fishing. I mean, everybody's fishing fluorocarbon because fish can see the line, you know. Well, you got these 4 or 5 wires sticking out there that are bigger than any line you're going to fish, and it still tricks them. So, but the first cast I ever made with it, I caught 2. Very first cast. And I was like, wow, there's something special about this, I guess. But it's all in location, you know. Yeah, that's right. I fished it a lot in the current back at home below the dams. In the slack water, right, you know, where the current seam is, you can catch the smallmouth. Absolutely love it. I mean, they love it. So it's I have a love-hate relationship with it. You know, I don't really like to throw it, but it will catch me. It catches me really good. What else? I know y'all got some more questions.
Do you fish much with tube bait?
Tube? Yeah, you know a tube, and I'll give you my analogy of the tube. Catfish a lot up north with it for smallmouth. I used to flip a tube continuous. I mean, that's just was my confidence bait. The thing I ran into with the tube is actually landing fish. Because if you ever watch a tube fall, you never know where the hook's going to be. If it's going to be pointed down, if it's going to be pointed up. That's why I try to stick with something that has tails or flap or something that holds that bait true. And I would lose a lot of fish on a tube. I haven't got away from it. I still use it some. I'd rather use it in an open hook setting as far as like a jig head or something up north or offshore versus flipping in cover and logs and trees and stuff like that. So, but the tube bait, they still bite it. It's just as good as it ever was. My hook ratio is a little bit worse on it than other baits. So that's why I don't use it as much. But I still have them in the boat. I use them. But if it's a hack to catch one, I'm scared to throw it because I'm scared to lose one. And that may be part of it too. So.
You had to pick one color jig fish. And all the colors that year in and year out, what color did you choose?
green pumpkin. But, you know, it's not my favorite jig. It's my favorite worm, brush hog, everything else. But as far as a jig, to answer the jig question, would be blackwood. I mean, that's day in, day out. Clear water, they don't, I mean, there's going to be places that won't bite it as good. But I say if they don't bite it, downside. So if you're on a clear body of water, I still think you can throw a black and blue jig, just not as big as you can the red jig. So, that, day in, day out, it catches more fish than the Yeah. Yeah, just depending on if they wanted something moving or, you know, a lot of times I use the super chunk, junior or the super chunk, the big super chunk, and I just go from those two. I mean, and if they want something with some action, I'll put an ultralight speed crawl or something with some action to it. So if they're hitting it on the fall, obviously I normally want something with some tail action on it. And if I downsize my jig, I'll put something like that and I'll slow it down. So they do. And you've got two sizes to choose from. You got the big one or you got the ultralight. So it does, because you have to have more weight on the big one to make it work. And that's true. It's a Zoom ultralight speed crawl. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And you can put a 1 ounce weight behind that dude and flip any cover you want to flip to catch it. I mean, I'm convinced of that. Grass, anything. I mean, it's really good. Really good. Green pumpkin is my favorite color in that. You like black and blue? Really? Only a little bit. Black and blue. Yeah. 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 It's it's my favorite in all my plastics. I mean, even from tubes, it's my go-to clear water, dirty water, but if it's a jig, it's black and blue. I mean, that's just, I like it better. And it don't make sense. You know, you'd think you could still carry it on with soft plastics, and you can, but it's just a confidence thing. I mean, I'm sure that's all it is. I like green pumpkin. You could, if I had one color, I think it'd have to be green. Green pumpkin if I couldn't use but one more. Somebody asked me the other day, said, if you had one cast to make to catch a fish, and you had to catch one, what would you use? And I said, it's easy, a green pumpkin trick worm on a shaky head. I mean, that would be, you know, it will catch a fish no matter where you are. So I feel like I can tie it on the Red River, and I know Brian Thrift caught a 7-9 on a shaky head yesterday. I don't know if it's green pumpkin, but that would be the one thing I would throw if I had one more cast and I had to catch it. What else? Yeah, they are really good. That place it's still got a lot of good timber in it. That's what I like about it. You know, the Tennessee River, we're losing some of the stumps and stuff's going away after all these years. That's still. Oh, really? I'd probably be scared to run in there then. I was scared to run in there then. Yeah. That's. Are y'all down on rainfall? Really? See, we're flooded. Yeah, and we were dry last year. North Alabama. Yeah.
Somebody from Georgia logged on and said, man, we're getting it right now.
Oh, yeah. It's been, I don't ever remember as much water going through the Tennessee River as it has this year. I mean, it's been unreal. I've seen it flooded. I think the spillways ran on Wilson Dam for 3 or 4 weeks straight. All of them. I mean, it was, I've never seen anything like that. Of course, that carries on to Kentucky Lake, and Kentucky Lake's been high, and they've, flooded some, so it's been a different year. But we faced that everywhere we've been in that plain, across Oklahoma, but you get below that, and then you guys are dry, so it's been, it's I wish we could spread some of it out. I wouldn't have to cut grass. Yeah, overall. I mean, I like it. You can. That's what I've always told people. I've done that for years. If I've got, we can only carry so much stuff. And all of us. And if you got a trick worm and you need a finesse worm, it's simple. You take about that much of it off. And you have basically the same thing. Old monster worm, you can, if you need it to be shorter, just cut it off. And that's the thing I've always done, just to cut down on some tackle in the boat. Still got enough. What kind? What color? Green pumpkin. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, the Tennessee River, depends on where I'm at. The Tennessee River, the June bug is probably my favorite there. But there's the plum's good. I use plum a lot. But between those three, that gives you a dark, and then a red, and then green pumpkin, more natural. There's so many colors out there. I mean, I can't even start to name all the Zoom colors, but most of those are for us. I mean, you like a color, you buy it, you catch fish on it, then it's a good bait. And that's the whole part of it. That's right. That's right. And there's no, that's the only reason there's hundreds of colors, variations of, but I've always tried to stick with the more normal colors, just because if you were to run out at a tournament, you can find those. And you don't have to go looking for a green pumpkin, orange, green. It's hard to. But once you get that confidence in your head, you think you have to have that special color. So I try not to open that window up and get confused. It's confusing enough as it is. So. I'll usually keep about 10 or 12. I try not to get over that. And I'd say that sometimes I have 15. I carry 20 in the boat. I try to limit to 20, and that's just like we started talking about earlier. You need more rods just for different size weights, different size lines, and maybe they never come out of the rod box. But you have them there, and you feel a little bit more comfortable that you might need that bait. You can go in there and get it. So that's the only reason I keep it. I don't like to have 15 on the deck. Idealistically, if I'm going out on a tournament, I like to have 3. Then I feel like I'm pretty confident in what I do today. But there's times, and I said Brian Thrift, I've watched him have 15 or 20. Luke Clausen's another one. They'll have 15 or 20 rods on the deck, and I think they use them all. And it's hard to keep them. It's hard to keep them organized when you get that many different baits out. And you throw one Alabama rig in that mix, and you've got one rod reel because they're all tangled up. So, no, we're not limiting. Only the co-anglers are limited. They can only bring 5. Yeah, that was. I think that's a new rule for this year. So they can only bring 5 on. Yeah, one or two day bag and a small tackle box. I think is the way it goes. So. Oh no, that's the thing. We keep getting bigger and bigger boats, and you're still running out of room. I used to think an 18-foot boat was all anybody ever needed, but now, with the extreme weather you have to pack for winter and summer. You never know what you're going to get into, so I leave a lot of stuff in the boat like that, and it takes up room. So, and then 20 rods and all that tackle, and it just eats it up. So, I do Castaway. Castaway is what I've used for years and years. I use Adus. I'm not sponsored by them. Lures are making a good reel. I think probably the top of the line reel right now is Lures. They're all made almost identical, but they're really pushing them out there. They're holding up good. So, to me, and for everybody else, if you're going to buy a reel and a rod, and you're not like me, you're not doing it full time, but you want it to last. And that's the one thing that everybody should go be able to buy. If you pay $300 for a reel, you want it to last the rest of your life, basically. And they should. And they're going to do that. Abu's good though. They've held up good. They're really simple to work on. So. But depends on if you see all the springs come out. I have had to box them up and take them to the store, but.
When you buy a reel, do you concentrate on the gear or the ball bearing? What is your
Well, it depends on what I use it for. The ratio versus the bearings. You know, you see, I had this conversation with my roommate last night. I said, it's funny, nobody's ever been able to sell me 8-ball bearing reel versus 11-ball bearing reel and me tell a difference in it. I mean, but you can't do it, to me. And you take them apart and you're like looking for these bearings. You're like, okay, there's 4. Where are the rest of them? Oh wait, there's 2 in the handle. Maybe they're counting 4 in the handle. You know, but that's where your more ball bearings come in. But most of the time it's in the handle. They are a little better quality. If you've ever had a handle come off with you when you set the hook, you know, I mean, I have it happen. Most of those bearings, the ones with the bearings, don't do that. And I mean, it only happens when you get wear on them. I mean, you're not going to do it. Most people would never do it, but if we use them every day, you know, they'll finally get that point. The ratio is probably the most important to me. If I'm cranking, obviously I want a 5-1-1 or less. Most people, Fritz would use a 4.8 or something, which is really slow. And but that's the way he fishes with it. 7.1 would be limited. You would flip with it. What happens when you go over ratios, you lose power. So if you have a 7.1, you're not going to be able to crank them out as good as with a 5.1, but it's going to attach you. So if you're throwing a buzzbait or a frog or something and you want to keep up with it, then use a 7.1. But I have a couple of 7.1 ones that I keep, but I don't like to get them mixed up because what if I throw it on a rod with a crankbait? Then I've got a super fast crankbait. So, you know, and it's hard to, end of the day, you think, well, I've got to turn the reel this slow to keep this crankbait right. So, you know, I try to keep those separate only on my frog rods and buzzbait rods and things that I can move quick or I want to get on the top of the water quick. But the most important would be the ratio, not the bearings. I don't get into that. I think that's another confusing aspect that you shouldn't have to worry about. So, you know, I usually pay about $50 per bearing, I think, over 8 or 9 bearings. So I don't see the use in it myself. But, line capacity is another thing. You know, that's one of the things with a low profile reel is you do lose some of your line capacity on 20-pound test, but I just know that if I'm spooling up flipping sticks, then I go all the way to the spool. And if I'm doing a fluorocarbon, I've got a set place that I go to where I know I've got the right amount of line. So that's the only thing different you have to, you know, used to, you had the 5500s and they were that big and you could put 3 spools of line on one, you know, I mean, you just have to measure it out. But now it's a little easier to do. So. My fluorocarbon I don't change as often. It does seem to hold up better as long as it's not, if you're casting it a lot. If it's on a cranking reel and you need to change it every couple of days if you're doing it all day. Just because it wears on itself. You know, if you have little backlashes, it chalks it up. But, you know, you don't have to change your flipping 15-pound or 20. You don't have to change it that often. I mean, you really don't have to change it. Maybe every tournament I might do it, which that's several days of fishing, you know, for us. And I'm convinced that the regular fisherman could probably fish the fluorocarbon all year. I mean, as long as it, you know, didn't seem to be getting rubbed. Yeah. Sun will eat it up better, worse than anything. Laying on the deck of the boat, if you'll keep it in the rod locker, I don't think you'll have a problem with it. The braided line I was talking about earlier on my spinning reel, I've had some on there for over 3 years that now I keep attaching new leaders to it, but I leave it on there that long. And mono is cheap enough you can change it. You know, but the cost factor of fluorocarbons, you know, it's pretty expensive. So it works like a shock absorber for one, and then for two is you don't have that because I use water. I want something I can see. And I think that would deter some fish from biting. I'm not saying it would 100%, but it makes me feel better to have a leader on there. And I use the fluorocarbon leader on there. So, what's that knot called? I think it's no, you got to attach the two with the uni to uni knot. Uni to uni. That's one of them. What is that other one that I use? I know how to tie it, but I just don't know the name of it. Sandy, maybe it's an Alberto knot. That's what it is. Yeah, it's Alberto knot. But the uni to uni is a simple one. You lay the two lines together, and you make a loop, and you go around it 6 times, pull that one down. Same thing on your tag line, and you pull them both together and clip to your tag ends, and that's the uni to uni on it. And it works well. It works well. It's not as tough as the other one, but it works. Use that 100% Invisalign. It's made by Barkley, and 10 pound test on the spinner. Like the Fireline crystal, you know the texture of it. It's similar to that. It has some kind of a shell on it. Yeah, it's 100%. Use 65-pound test most all the time. Spider wire. Yep, use spider wire. And green 65, and it lasts for a long time. And I mean, for the average person, if you get, it'll fade. That's the biggest thing about it. And I keep a black marker in the boat that I just colored up. And once you get done with that, you can take it, tie it to another reel, and spool it off and use it. And you still got brand new line down there. So I even do that, and I've got enough braid to last from here on probably. But I still do that because I think it's wasted to just peel it off and throw it in the trash. So I think that you can get a lot more out of your line. I use tri-lane, I understand. Yeah, it's a little bigger diameter, so like really you only need like 8 pound. I use some 10 and then 15, 20 because I use the 15 for the 14 to 16, 17 pound class. It works perfect, so you don't need as much of this. So it's really strong. Really strong. What else? I know you had a question.
Yeah, when you tie your braid, say you're on a spinning wheel, you got a 10-pound braid, what leader pound do you use?
I use 8 most all the time.
Mono?
It's fluorocarbon. 8 pound. Yeah, that's the one I use for all my shaky heads. A lot of times I'll use it to skip like a wacky worm, but 8 pound test is what I use on the braid. Because it helps you see. Yeah, it helps you see. I mean, you can
green.
Exactly. Yeah, you can just see it much better. Not if you have a 10-foot. I usually put about a 10-foot leader on there. Yeah, but it doesn't. Even in crystal clear water, I've done it, and it's just those fish never pay attention to it. I use it like this fly rod fishing. If y'all have ever done it, you got the big float line, and then you got your little leader. So if it don't bother them fish, I don't see where that ever does either. And you could probably attach it directly to the braid. You have to have that level of confidence in your head, so that's why I do it. It just makes it a lot easier, a lot less stuff to carry. You got your reel that your spinning reel, that's always been my problem. It comes off if you don't keep it stretched out good. It don't happen with braid.
You attach your braid to spinning wheel. Sometimes it should.
It will. I put a mono or a floor backing. Yeah, just a few rings. I mean, if you just cover that spool, then you're good. Yeah, but it will. You're right. It'll just spin it'll spin. Sure will. Some of the newer ones, you can tie to, they've got holes that you can go through. They don't slip as bad, but I still use it. Some of them's got rubber on them now, to where there's a couple like O-rings in there, and that helps keep that from slipping. So, but I just always put it back on there, and you're safe for sure. Well, I got to wrap it up. So I can stand up here and talk to y'all all day, but I appreciate you coming out. If you got any questions, I'll be in the Twix booth.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan Newton. Twix Pro, let's give it up for him one more time. We appreciate you all coming out to the show. We'll have more seminars to come, so feel free to come back. We have one at 3 o'clock today with Dion Hittman. He'll be following up Jonathan. And enjoy the show. The weigh-in starts at 5 at the CenturyLink Center, so make sure you get over there and check that out.
You know what I mean? At least I got some